Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are painting lavender and it is day 13 of our 30 days of watercolor flowers. I am really excited to show you this one, so let's get into it. So I'm starting off with a pinkish purple color and I'm doing a light wash to start. I don't want anything too dark yet, but I don't want it too light either. And I'm using my brush to create these kind of teardrop type shapes. And if you think of lavender, or if you're looking at a reference picture, the flowers on lavender are thicker and bigger towards the bottom, and then they get smaller and thinned out towards the top. So that's what I'm creating here. I'm starting to do littler flowers, more spaced apart. And then at the bottom, I wanted to just add a little bit more fullness, so I'm adding a few flowers in a light wash down there. Now I'm picking up more paint on my brush so that I have a darker pigment of purple, and I'm going through and adding that to the base of some of these flowers. And this is why I wanted to start with a little bit of a lighter wash and not go straight into a super dark purple with the initial laydown of color, because now I'm able to add this dark pigment, and when the flowers are still wet, I'm able to get this really nice soft gradient where some of the wash is still really light, and that can represent areas where the sun might be hitting the lavender, and then the dark purple areas can represent more of the shadows. So lavender has a lot of variation, and not all of the sprigs of lavender are super blossomy, and so I'm painting one that's a little bit more sparse and just has a few blossoms on it. And for the greenery, I really wanted to do a nice sage green. So the trick to getting a nice sage color green is you start with your bright green and you add red, because red is the complementary color to green. So anytime you want to mute a color and make it less bright, you add that color's complement. So adding a little bit of red makes greens more of an earthy, sagey tone. So now I'm just taking this sagey pigment straight through the middle of the lavender, adding a little bit of little twigs here and there to connect some of the blossoms, and then I'm doing this green top where there's some more of the immature buds. Lavender has very thin, wispy leaves towards the bottom, and I am using just one single stroke with my brush to achieve that. So making sure to put lighter pressure on the ends of the leaf, putting more pressure on the center of the leaf with my brush. So now I'm adding the greenery to the center of this lavender, and I'm following the same steps that I did before, where I'm adding the little stems to attach the flowers and adding this green premature bud situation going on at the top. And then the lavender that has only a few florals has some green towards the center, and then of course the leaves towards the bottom. I also decided to take a very light pink wash to create a couple of areas that looked like maybe a highlight or just a really washed out area where you would see lavender and it would be more of a pink color than such a stark purple. And I'm just going through and adding even more details now that some of the flowers are more dry, and I'm taking a darker pigment of the purple and putting some of that purple towards the base of the flowers again to create more shadowing and more depth. So for this lavender, I wanted it to be even more sparse with the flowers, and I wanted it to be a little bit more curved over. And because I didn't want to lose the shape that I had in mind for the direction that it was going, I started with the greenery first on this one. And in my reference photos, these sprigs of lavender that had only a few florals had the leaves pretty high up on the stem, and so I wanted to show that. So at this point, the composition was looking really flat to me. Like, here are my 3 pieces of lavender that are super perfect looking, and lavender is really wild. And so I started to add a lot more sprigs doing different things. I felt like the space with the really long stem was weird, so I added another piece of lavender right in the middle, so it's kind of overlapped in the middle of that one. And so I'm just tweaking things here and there as it feels right, making sure there's not awkward empty spaces or weird gaps. And I'm adding even more pink, and right here I add way too much pink. So I used paper towel, which is so handy to have. And I just continued to add some light pink areas because I just felt like that really added a nice contrast to the dark purple. And this open space was probably bugging you. It was bugging me too. So I did another curved, wild looking piece. I kind of wanted it to curve in the other direction to be opposite of the one just underneath it, and I think it filled the whole piece out really nicely. And I'm just finishing up the piece by adding even more of that dark purple pigment for contrast and shadowing, taking the details to the next level. And now that we have finished practicing our lavender, I am adding it to my watercolor flower guide, and I'm painting a few different variations of the lavender so that when I look back on my guide to reference it, I can remember the different ways that lavender behaves. And that is it. Thank you so much for being here today while we painted lavender on day 13 of 30 days of watercolor flowers. I really enjoyed this one. I hope you did too. And I will see you all tomorrow for day 14. Bye.